Coming up on Hoosier Sports Night, the women's basketball team continues their run in the postseason National Invitation Tournament.
And Indiana softball has been tearing through competition. We have the weekend recap, and head coach Michelle Gardner joins us in studio. This is Hoosier Sports Night.
From Franklin Hall, on the campus of Indiana University, you're watching Hoosier Sports Night.
Hello and welcome to Hoosier Sports Night. I'm Juliana Sherry.
And I'm Lydia Knoll. We've had a nice long spring break, but now we're ready to get down to business. And there have been plenty of Indiana sports in action.
Most notably, Lydia, the women's basketball team has made a splash in the WNIT with double-digit victories already over Ball State and St. Louis.
The Hoosiers continued to play here at home in the Simon Scott Assembly Hall against Southern Methodist University on Thursday. IUSTV basketball beat reporter Jordan Burroughs was out on the court covering the action.
Thanks, Lydia. After a slow start to the Hoosiers taking on the Mustangs right here in Assembly Hall, Indiana was able to come away with the victory 64-44 in this round of 16 game. The SMU Mustangs were only able to put up 4 points in the first quarter, while the Hoosiers were able to put up 12. It was 12-4 after the first quarter, and Indiana held the lead the rest of the game after that. In the first half, Indiana was atop 27-17. They did have 11 turnovers, but finished the first half with 8 assists and shot 44% from the field. Tyra Buss scored 6 points and had 3 turnovers. In the first half, Alexis Gaskin added 6 points, and Rhea Gully also added 5 points in the first half. SMU in that first half was shooting 1 of 19 for a little while until they were able to find their groove, find their spunk in the first half. But 27-17, the Hoosiers outscored SMU in the first half. Then looking at the second half, more points were scored between the Hoosiers and the SMU Mustangs. Indiana outscored SMU 37-27 in the second half, so making the game 64-44 by the time the final buzzer went off. In the final minutes of the game and by the end of the game, Indiana shot 44% from the field and 42% from three-point land. SMU shot 28% from the field and 31% from the three-point line. McBride finished with 17 points and 5 rebounds. Amanda Cahill had 10 points and 9 rebounds. And then the trio of Buss, Gaskin, and Anderson all finished with 8 points. The Hoosiers were able to out-rebound, out-assist, and they did have more turnovers than the Mustangs throughout this game. On the rebound margin, the Hoosiers were at 42-29 assists. It was 19-6. The Hoosiers tripled the amount of assists that the Mustangs had. In turnovers, Indiana had 16 turnovers, while SMU had 12 turnovers. Throughout the tournament, the Hoosiers have shot above 40% from the field, and throughout the season, they were shooting at a 45% mark. Offensive efficiency has been what these Hoosiers are known for, but in the press conference, Coach TERI MOREN was really excited about the team's defense in this game.
What I was really happy with, though, was defensively. I thought we guarded really well, and anytime we had an opportunity, whether it was a timeout, there was very little discussion on how we were playing defensively. I thought we were playing tremendous.
Indiana now has 23 wins on the season, the most in program history, and looking to keep that win streak going, the Hoosiers will face off against the Villanova Wildcats in Assembly Hall this Sunday at 2 p.m. Coach Moren talked in a press conference how she couldn't be more excited to be playing in Assembly Hall.
I love it that we get to sleep in our own beds, and we don't have to get on an airplane and have to go through all that. I mean, it's a tremendous thing for our players. I know they get excited just to be here at home in front of our home crowd.
Coming into tonight's game, the seniors of this Indiana squad thought this would be their last game in Assembly Hall, but they are looking to keep the train rolling as they will at least have one more game inside Assembly Hall. Coach Moren said she loves the support of the fan base and hopes more fans will come out this Sunday at 2 p.m. against the Villanova Wildcats. Back to you guys.
With that victory over SMU, the Hoosiers are now 23-10 this season.
Indiana will be back in action against Villanova on March 26th.
The softball team looked to stay hot when they hosted the Hoosier Classic this past weekend at Andy Moore Field. IUSTV beat reporter David Sugarman was there to catch all the pitches of Sunday's doubleheader.
Indiana was riding high on a 5-game win streak when they headed into the Hoosier Classic. The Hoosiers played 4 games over the course of 2 days, and while they had their streak snapped at 6, IU finished the weekend strong winning both of their games Sunday in shutout fashion. In the early game, IU beat UIC 4-0 and then beat Bowling Green 1-0 with the lone run coming from junior Shayna Gam. The Hoosiers were anchored all weekend long by strong pitching performances, particularly from Tara Trainer and Emily Gooden. Trainer pitched 2 complete games, surrendering just 3 runs and racking up the strikeouts, highlighted by a 10-strikeout performance in the win against UIC. Now winners of 8 out of their last 9, second baseman ERIN LEHMAN talked about what's been working so well for the team.
Yeah, I think we had a great weekend coming off 5-0. We felt pretty confident coming into this weekend. We had 2 good teams that we played, but we came out, we played hard, we hit the ball really well. Even in our loss, we scored 9 runs, and that was an extra inning. So that was a good battle by us, and I think our offense is definitely getting in its rhythm, and our pitchers came out and just killed it this weekend.
Now at 14-14 and playing 500 ball for the first time since the early stages of the season, Coach Gardner's club will look to stay hot with conference play on the horizon. For IUS TV Sports, I'm David Sugarman.
The Hoosiers look to continue their success when they host their Big Ten home opener this weekend.
Speaking of softball, this week on Hoosier, Juliana is joined in studio by softball head coach Michelle Gardner to catch us up on how the Hoosiers have fared through the first half of the season.
Thanks, Lydia. Coach, thanks for joining me in studio this week. First, let's take a look at the past couple of weeks. You guys have gone on a tear through your competition. You know, the University of Memphis tournament, 5-0 undefeated, and then you come home for your home opener, 3-1 in the Hoosier Classic. How do you feel about how your team has progressed through the start of the season?
Well, you know, obviously we've had a really strong preseason, and, you know, I felt like we had some opportunities of games we could have won earlier, and going into the Memphis weekend, the first 2 games were tough. We won both games in extra innings, and then our hitting actually finally came around to be what I thought it would be, and scored a ton of runs, ruled our next 3 opponents. This past weekend, we were 3-1, and honestly, I felt we could have been 4-0. Just kind of ran out of time in our one UIC game, but felt like we kind of started hitting on all cylinders.
And now you're 6 weeks into your 9th season as Indiana's head coach. What has impressed you the most thus far?
Well, I think this is a very competitive group. I think we've got just a really good mix of upperclassmen and underclassmen. I think, you know, I feel like we're seeing a lot of different faces step up in different positions and times in the game. And I feel like our pitching's been strong. Defensively, we've been strong. And honestly, we're finding a way to score runs now. I really have felt all along that our offense was going to be strong. And, you know, the past 2 weekends, they just really have come together.
And you talk about the offense. It's clear to see that they're continuously improving, and confidence has been growing at the plate. You know, specifically looking at this past weekend, Taylor Uden, 8 for 11 with 2 home runs. Then Gabby Jenkins has really been excelling in the leadoff spot. You have a couple young faces, Bella Norton, Katie Lacefield, also getting their bats on the balls. How does having such an experienced offense, you know, through the first half of this season help poise you for a run in the Big Ten?
Well, it's, you know, our preseason games and the strength of schedule that we have are in preparation for Big Tens. And so I really felt like, you know, we struggled early just trying to get the confidence and put everything together. And the past 2 weekends, everything's kind of come together. And I feel that's a combination of our young kids becoming acclimated and our veterans actually, you know, kind of molding and working with our younger players. And so I think at this point they've all just become a team and really have played very well together and work hard together, have a really good team chemistry, which, you know, always makes a difference, especially in a season like ours, which is so long. We have, I think, 3 different parts to our season. And so I feel like this is just the part of the season where we need to see this kind of unity at this point. And so I just feel really good about where we are heading into the Big Ten schedule.
Now, taking a look at the rest of your schedule, you start out Big Tens here at home against Rutgers, but then you go on the road for 3 weeks. It's a really tough schedule to have to go to Penn State, Minnesota, Ohio State. You also travel on the road to Michigan. How did the non-conference tournament circuit really prepare you guys for going into these really tough, long weekends in Big Ten territory?
Well, you know, when we travel for our non-cons, most of the time we're playing 4 to 5 games a weekend. And now we're in Big Tens where technically it's a 3-game series. It's 1 game Friday, 1 game Saturday, 1 game Sunday. Whereas we have been playing 2 Friday, 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday, you know, in general. And so I really feel like that was a lot to begin with. And so now it's actually easier. So the travel's the same. We're still leaving on Thursday. We're coming back on Sunday, but we're only playing 3 games. We have 1 game a day. So it's get prepared for 1 game a day. It's less taxing on your body, even though, yes, it's still traveling. It just isn't the constant grind of having to play 2 games a day, 2 games, and then a single game, and then fly home and get ready for the next thing. But so, you know, hopefully that has prepared us for the challenge of the Big Ten season. With only having 3 Big Ten weekends at home, you know, that's kind of tough. But that's why our first 6 weeks are on the road. You know, that and the weather. I mean, we got to play that into it. But that's why I feel confident with where we are moving forward.
Well, thanks a lot, Coach, for joining me this week on Hoosier. Hoosier, good luck in your season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You can check the Indiana softball team here at home this weekend in a 3-game series with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Lydia, back to you.
As Juliana said, the softball team finishes out a 2-week homestand this weekend before going on the road for 3 weeks here at the start of Big Ten play.
Coming up on Hoosier Sports Night, Tom Crean is out as Indiana's head coach. Andrew Hussey joins us to talk about potential replacements.
And we bring you baseball for the first time this season, and it all starts with the Cincinnati Bearcats. Stay with us here on Hoosier Sports Night.
This is The Toss-Up, where we take a look at some of the topics facing the world of college sports and give a little bit of history behind some of them. We're not trying to change your mind. We just want to dive deeper into the topics that keep you tuned in to the teams you love. The Toss-Up, airing every Sunday during the 2017 semester. Welcome back to Hoosier Sports Night. The men's basketball season officially closed the books on a disappointing season with a loss in the National Invitation Tournament to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. After the loss, Tom Crean was let go by the university. Now the hunt has begun for a new head coach. Lydia is joined in studio by IDS reporter Andrew Hussey with a look into who could possibly be taking the reins. Lydia?
Today for an update on the men's basketball team is IDS basketball beat reporter Andrew Hussey. Andrew, it's great having you on the show today. As many of you may know by now, men's basketball head coach Tom Crean has been fired after a 9-year tenure at IU. He finished with an overall record of 166 and 135. Although he certainly brought success to Indiana at a time when some thought the team was unsalvageable, Coach Crean struggled to keep success consistent. Athletic Director Fred Glass held a press conference last Thursday to address his decision.
Tom Crean brought us through one of the most challenging periods in IU history, led his players to many successes on and off the court, including particularly in the classroom, and represented our university with class and integrity. While winning 2 outright Big Ten titles in 5 years and being named the Big Ten Coach of the Year just last year, Tom worked tirelessly to develop great young men and successful teams. However, ultimately, we seek more consistent, high levels of success, and we will not shy away from our expectations. We will identify and recruit a coach who will help us meet these expectations. This was a decision that I made not because I thought it was popular, because popular tends to change, but it was the decision I thought I needed to make because it was right, because right, tends not to change.
Now, Andrew, you've been around this team all season, have been with them through their highs and their lows. Was this coaching adjustment something that you saw coming?
I think towards the end of the season, you kind of realize that this is maybe what is going to happen. We didn't know how soon after the season would happen, and Fred Glass really decided to be decisive, and after kind of an inconsistent season where you had such good wins over Kansas and UNC, they just kind of faltered down the stretch of the season, and then after they lost in the NIT, you just kind of sensed something was a little amiss. Things weren't looking so right. The fans were kind of getting upset, and you realized that maybe Fred will make a move, and then he pulled the trigger there on last week to fire Tom Crean.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there was a last straw for Fred Glass before he made that decision?
I don't really think there was a last straw, because Fred talked about how it was the entire 9-year tenure of Tom Crean that kind of the inconsistencies over the tenure of the 9 years. So it wasn't just like, oh, this season you didn't make the NCAA tournament, that means we're going to fire you. It was more like there was a lot of things that were shown this season that were the same problems that had been in the past 4 years, and then you'd miss the tournament 2 out of 4 years. It was kind of these last 4 years after they went to back-to-back Sweet 16s that did Tom Crean in.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Now, as of right now, we have OG Anunoby, who was out with an injury but still considering the draft, Thomas Bryant, maybe James Blackman. How do you think this coaching adjustment will affect their decision to go to the NBA draft?
Yeah, I think a lot of it for a lot of these 3 players is going to be wait and see, and who's that next coach? Do they going to have a good relationship with him or not? Kind of that first few weeks with the coach are going to decide it. But for OG, a lot of it's about his knee. How healthy is he? Do the NBA teams look at him and see that the knee is going to keep him from being picked in the lottery? So it really comes down to, for OG, how healthy is he? And then for Thomas and James, what can they get from coming back next season? How much they can improve under the new coach? And if they really like the new coach, maybe they'll come back for another season.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the new coach, a lot of names have been thrown around. No one really knows for sure. Do you have a jab at any idea who it might be?
I mean, it seems like every other day now there's this new candidate in their mix, and there's about 5 or 6 names that a lot of people have talked about. I think the big ones are Billy Donovan, who coaches the Oklahoma City Thunder, Steve Alford at UCLA, Archie Miller, Dayton, Greg Marshall at Wichita State, Chris Mack, Xavier. And really there's just a bunch of names, and really I think for Fred Glass, he's got to find the right guy who really fits the program and kind of can mold into that IU identity, because they're all a bunch of great candidates, and I think whichever one he picks is going to be a good hire for IU.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, I sure hope so. Thank you so much for joining us today on our show and filling us in a little bit.
It's good to be here.
We will definitely keep you updated on what happens as soon as we know any details for the further coach search.
After a tough start to the season, the baseball team has torn through competition, winning 5 of their last 6. The Hoosiers looked to stay hot Wednesday night against Cincinnati, and IUS TV baseball beat reporter Austin Matricardi was out at Bart Kaufman catching all the action.
The game started slowly, with both teams going hitless until the bottom of the 4th, when Matt Gorski reached on a bunt single. Craig Didolo followed that up with a single of his own, which brought up Luke Miller, whose recent success continued at the plate. Miller brought in a run with a double to give the Hoosiers a 1-0 lead before Jake Matheny extended the margin to 3, hitting a 2 RBI single. The Bearcats fought back in the top of the 5th, scoring on a single to right field, and then in the 8th, the Bearcats struck again, scoring on another RBI single to bring the deficit to just 1 run. Sophomore Matt Lloyd entered the game for IU with 2 outs in the 8th and pitched the final 4 outs to preserve the Hoosier lead and earn the save. Indiana took the victory 3-2 and advanced their record to 10-8-1. For IUS TV Sports, I'm Austin Matricardi.
IU travels to Rocky and Bernice Miller Park in Evanston, Illinois for their next road trip in a 3-game stand against the Northwestern Wildcats, March 24th through the 26th. Now this past week, spring break came knocking, and for the men's and women's tennis teams, that meant road trips to California, Iowa, and Las Vegas.
For the men, a non-conference match with Texas Tech, and for the women, Big Ten openers against Iowa and Rutgers.
The women's team played their Big Ten opener in Iowa City, but the Hoosiers could not get their footing as they fell to the Hawkeyes 6-1, their only win coming from Natalie Whalen in singles. Although traveling southwest to Nevada for their match against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, the Hoosiers' performance went north as they pulled off a 5-2 win.
The men's team played in a close match against the Texas Tech Red Raiders over the break, coming down to the very last contest of the day. However, the Hoosiers were unable to grab the win, falling to Tech 4-3.
The women's and men's tennis teams both return home this weekend with multiple games on multiple days that allow you many chances to get out and support the Hoosiers.
The women's team will match up this weekend against the 2 programs out of Michigan, with the Wolverines first on Saturday and then the Spartans on Sunday. The men's team plays in a doubleheader on Sunday, first against the Wildcats of Northwestern before a non-conference foe in the Detroit Titans.
Over the final weekend of spring break, the women's swimming and diving team made a splash in nationals in Indianapolis, finishing highest amongst Big Ten teams for the third straight year.
The Hoosiers finished 8th overall with 185 points, with both marks posting second-best records in school history.
Lily King led the way for IU, successfully defending her title with a record-breaking time in the 200 breaststroke on Sunday. With that victory, King became the first swimmer or diver in Big Ten history to win 4 individual national titles. King also received All-American honors in the 400 medley relay, where she, along with Kennedy Goss, Gia D'Alessandro, and Holly Spears, took 5th, the best finish in Indiana program history.
The Hoosiers also finished 4th in the 200 medley relay, breaking a school and Big Ten record with a combination of Allie Rocket, King, D'Alessandro, and Spears. In diving, Jessica Pareto earned 14th in the 3-meter dive and finished with a career-best 10th overall in the 1-meter.
With nationals over, women's swimming and diving is done until 2018. The Hoosiers finished 7-4 overall, with an 8th-place finish in nationals and 2nd place in the Big Ten.
Not only did women's swimming and diving finish out with nationals over break, the wrestling team did as well, sending Jake Danasek, Nate Jackson, Elijah Oliver, and Devin Skotska to St. Louis. Oliver, Skotska, and Danasek each finished nationals without a victory, exiting the tournament with losses in the consolation round. The Hoosiers' 4th national qualifier, Jackson, fared much better, reaching the blood round, a consolation match to determine whether he would become an All-American, and for the 2nd year in a row, Jackson found himself at the All-American podium. A 9-6 victory over Central Michigan's Jordan Ellingwood made Jackson the 4th consecutive All-American for head coach Dwayne Goldman. Jackson finishes his season at 35-6 with a 105-36 overall record at IU.
With spring break over and Indiana athletics returning home, there are plenty of opportunities to get out and support the Hoosiers over the next week.
And with those opportunities come Crimson Guard reward points, which can earn you a wide selection of prizes. Here are the events which you can attend to rack up those points.
That does it this week here on Hoosier Sports Night. As always, thanks for tuning in.
Don't forget to like our page, IUSTV Sports, on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at IUSTV Sports.
For Lydia Knoll, I'm Juliana Sherry. We'll see you next week.